How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another platform tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be adding in our main menu functionality as well as our music. And before we do that, we're going to be messing around with our win death layout and setting that up. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go to our game manager, or to our game layout actually, and we're going to copy these two things from our HUD. We're going to grab them. And we're just going to put them on here. We don't need to have any special objects because this is always going to track it since we're not restarting the layout. We are actually going to go here, and that's one of the things I may have fixed beforehand and I forgot to show it to you. Instead of actually destroying here, we're going to wait for half a second and then go to the win death layout. So now what we need to do is this will actually display our coins. What we want to have happen is we want to let the user know if they won or if they died, and to do that we're going to unlock the menu. We're going to right click and clone the logo, and we're going to call this SF winner. And what we want to do here is we actually want to scale this down. So let's go all the way down here. Let's scale this down to 2. And let's just call this winner in all caps, so it's nice and gold. And what we can actually do is we can make this a lot smaller, just so it's more manageable. And we can mess around with the positioning all we want. But right now we just want SF winner. What we want to do is we want to make this a global object. Now this is going to be a very big thing for this video because we're going to be using global objects where they persist throughout the layout. They will not destroy until we tell it to. So we want SF winner to be a global object. And then what we want to do on our main menu event, we want to go system, start of layout, and let's also add an every tick just for later. And what we want to do on our menu event is we want to destroy SF winner. So let's go here, let's go to this SF winner and type in destroy. So now every time you restart the game, it's going to destroy that global object. So on game layout, what we want to do here is we want to double click. We want to make a new sprite, or actually what I can do is I can go to my win death here and I can clone it and I can paste it, and I'm going to cut it and put it onto my game layout over here. And this is going to be SF winner 2. Now SF winner 2 is just going to chill here. It's not going to be something over here, but it should be another global object. And what we're going to do in our game manager when we die and before we go to our win death layout, we're going to set SF winner 2 text to be you died. And we're going to do that right before we actually go to the game layout. Now we're going to go to our boss, which should be down here, and find where our boss dies. And we're going to actually set it to you won right before we go to the win death layout. You won. Something like that. What we're going to do in the win death event now is on the start of the layout, we're going to set SF winners text to be SF winner 2 dot text. And I believe the W needs to be lowercase, although it doesn't really seem to matter. And what this is going to do is on the game layout, this object is going to be here in the same exact position when we generate this level, when we generate this layout. So we'll know that this should be able to be set. So let's hit save and let's hit play. This actually might load not the game. So let's go to our game layout and let's hit play. And let's see if it'll load the game. Let me run around. Let me go slide down the wall, which is fun. Avoid the enemy. Try not to die until... Actually, I guess I could just die, huh? So let's see what happens when I die. I died. It says that I died. Awesome. Let's hit that again and let's see what happens if I win. And this should carry over and it should destroy that global object. Now, the reason why I made it destroy the global object is because otherwise it would have been right smack in the same position that it was in the win death layout, on the menu layout and on the game layout. And we obviously do not want that. So let's see what happens if I win. It should just say that I won, which is just a nice thing to have for your game. Let me see if I can win here. And then we have a few bonus things to add in as well for the boss. Oh, I died again. All right, last time. Let me just put my... Actually, no, I need to get the power up. Last time, let's see if I can win. I have to win, otherwise it's not good. So let's go over here. Let me not lose health. Let's go down here. Oh man, those spikes, they get you. Let me get some strategy going on. Jump over here. I can't really see. There we go. And oh, come on, I need to win. We're gonna have to dodge. There we go. Oh, I died. Okay. And I really want to test that out. So one more time. Gotta make sure that I win here. Otherwise, what's the point? Let's see. Alright, got some health. Go this way. It's because I'm playing recklessly. I just keep losing health. So I have 3 lives here to beat him. Come on. You're gonna die now. It's time to die. And when he does die, it'll tell me that I won. Oh no. I took a damage. Die. There we go. Oh, that was terrible. That was terrible. Okay, hold on. We got this. Yes! Explosion. I won! Okay, there we go. Sweet. So now that we have our win-death layout pretty much solid, let's actually program our menu layout. So what we want to do here is a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to come back to the win-death layout and we're going to add in the one last thing, which will be our timer, but I just kind of want to move back and forth and pick up the pace with the menu because this is going to be the last big project to do. So what we're going to do is a lot of disabling and enabling. So let's go to our menu event here. And what we want to do here is we actually want to use our local storage. So to use our local storage, we're going to kind of have to, let's think. Before we actually do the local storage, we're going to set everything up. And the first thing that I want to set up is I want to make sure that the controls layer and the options layer are invisible. And I just realized this right this second that the box, they kind of need to be on the same layer here, or we could just, no, they do need to be on the same layer. So we're going to have to kind of redesign this to make it a little bit more sense. But for right now, before we do that, just so it's not a hassle, we're going to program it with the separate layers. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our menu event and we're going to add the event for our mouse. We're going to say plugins, mouse, and we want to find out if it's over the object menu box. And if it is, then we're going to set the animation of menu box, or let's actually set the frame to 1. Now let's actually open that up. Let's go to our menu box here and let's set the default speed to 0 and let's hit OK. Now, if our mouse is over or hovering, it'll actually set it to the next frame in the animation. Else, what we want to do is set it back to 0. And to make that else statement, I selected the event and then I hit X. So what we want to find out now is, hopefully this will load that. There we go. So now when we're over any of these boxes, you can actually see that it's going to change for that. Cool. So that's working really well. We're going to do the hiding in a second, but what we want to do first is we want to program for everything, or at least program enough of everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to then find out if a certain layer is visible or not. Unfortunately, I mean, there is a way that you can put this line of code with the cursors over the object menu box onto its own event sheet, and you can include it, but unfortunately we need a few different versions of it. So the first version that we need of it is we need to make sure that these, let me go back to the main menu. I called it main menu. I should rename this to menu layout so I don't get confused. And I can call my menu event my menu manager. There we go. So what we need to do here is we need to actually hide the controls and the options layer. So we need to check for that. I'm trying to think if we want to check for that now or if we just want to set up the buttons. I think actually let's just set up the buttons. So in the menu manager, what we're going to do is we're going to set up the button IDs. So for example, if the plugin for the mouse is left clicked on the menu box, and the menu box compare instance variable ID equals 0, then we're going to say system go to game layout. And what this is doing is it's going to click on the menu box and check to see which ID has the ID of 0, and then if it does, it's going to go to the game layout. Let's do this for the other ones as well. What we would do is we would do it for the options and the controls, and that'll pop them up. So let's actually do that as well. Let's copy and paste again. And 1 should be for options and 2 should be for controls. And all we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that, is we're going to set that layer to visible. So I'll put a comment here. This should be for options. This should be for controls. We're going to set the layer visibility. So we'll go over here, type in layer viz, and quotes. Let's go for options, visible. Let's control click, and let's make this controls visible. And hit OK. All right, so now that we have that programmed in, let's see if we can program in some other stuff here that'll actually just make our lives easier in a second here. What we want to do is we want to program in for our controls, and trying to think how we're going to do this. I think we should be fine. I think now that we actually have our boxes with their given IDs, we should be okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have to merge this all together. And I apologize that I didn't think that through. So what we're going to do is we're going to, let's see what's on the box layer. Everything that's on the box layer, we can hide the other stuff. This, we are going to move to the layer, which one was it? Controls. We're going to move it to the layer controls. And this, we're going to move to the layer options. And the reason we have to do this is because we are dependent on hiding and unhiding them, I guess. Let's see here. What else do I have? So on the controls menu here, I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to right click and set the Z order to the bottom. And same thing for the options. I'm going to click all of these, control click, right click, Z order to the bottom. All right, so we should be good with that now. And now we can actually program, because when I hit this off, it actually disappears. And this is what our main menu will look like. And when you click on the options button, it'll go here. And when you click on the controls button, it'll pop up there. So let's actually start to program for that. And to do this, we can actually go back to the beginning. So what we want to do is we want to actually check to see what is what. And we're going to need to do this it's going to be a little interesting here. So what we want to do is if the cursor is over the object menu, and let's go here, system, layer viz, let's just, layer is visible, layer controls, let's copy and paste, and layer options. And what we want to find out here is if they're not visible. So we want to hit I on both of them. So if the cursor is over the menu box, but these are not visible, then set the animation to 1. Now we need to have an exception here, and this is going to be for our sound effects. So I'm going to make a note for our sound effects. But what we want to do here is we want to compare the IDs. So let's copy this ID and paste it here. So if your mouse is over the menu box and these two are not visible and the ID equals 1, it's going to play a sound. Or the ID equals 0, 1, or 2. So let's go 0. Let's hit Y, Control C and V. 1, Control V, and 2. So that should be all of the main buttons here on the menu layout. It should be Start Game, Options, and Controls. Hopefully I haven't lost you so far. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to have another event just like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to Control copy this and hit paste. And if that didn't work, I can copy this, or I can actually make this a group, and I can call this the hover group, hover menu. And I'm going to copy this guy. I'm going to paste it somewhere, wherever it'll let me paste it. There it goes. And I'm going to put this after the else statement, which needs to go into our hover group here. And if it doesn't go into the hover group, I can make a new else statement. I can just do this like that. So now what I need to do is I need to just add in the exact same code. So I'm just going to copy this, set the animation to frame 1, hit X again, copy this, and set it to frame 0. So things are kind of moving around here. Let me see. And what this is going to do that's going to be different is I'm going to have a sub event here, and I'm going to check to see if these are visible. So let me copy this and hit paste, and I'm going to take the inversion off by hitting I. And what I want to do here is I want to have another OR statement. So I'm going to copy and paste this, change this to options. So it's basically having a bigger else statement, because this is saying if we're over the menu box and these are not visible, then do this and trigger this sound. If we're over the menu box and they are visible, then you can still trigger the sound, but we need to have these as separate things. So let me try to separate this. This will be for if, or let's just call this layer viz, just so we kind of know what's going on here. And then this will be for the non-layer visible. And this will make sense more so in a second. I can put this in the hover menu as well. Let's say layer not viz. This should make sense as soon as we continue forward. So we have our start menu programmed, and now we actually have it to set the layer options to visible. So on the start of the layout, what we want to do here is we want to make sure that both of these are invisible. So I'm going to control to select both. I'm going to copy and paste, and I'm going to set this to be invisible because we do not want them to be there. Otherwise, we would be seeing our menu, and that would be bad. And now what we need to do is we need to actually figure out a way to... Actually, you know what? Let's just start to program our actual menu contents before we go into anything more crazy here. So let's call this, let's hit G, and let's make a group here and call this our main menu, because that's what this is. This is our main menu. I select the main menu, put this in there. And what we want to do now is we want to actually, we can copy this guy and we can paste it outside of the group. We want to find out what is the first control. So let's go to our menu layout here. Now this is the hard part and the part I was trying to avoid as long as I could. I just need to kind of move this up and find out what ID this is. So this should be 7, 8, 9, and 10, which means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's what that should mean. So for ID 7 was what we'll start with. We're going to say, oops, I cut back too far. Let's copy this again and hit paste. For ID 7, we want to set a variable to equal 0. So let's actually make a new variable. We're going to make a global variable by hitting V on the keyboard. We're going to call this options controls. This is going to be really important to saving to local storage, because this is from our options menu, or not from our options menu, from our controls menu. Technically it's an options menu, so I called it option controls. It's kind of redundant, but from our menu controls, it would be a better name for it. What we're going to do is we're going to set it to whatever it is. This is going to be for WASD, and what we're going to do is we're going to set controls to invisible after we select it. So if you're opening up the controls panel and you select WASD, it's going to immediately close out after you make that selection. That's what that line does there. Then we want to trigger once, and we want to set opt controls. So set the value under system of opt controls to equal 0. Now this is the part where we're going to do some local storage, but I think we're going to hold off on that for last and we'll come back to it. So now what I can do is I can copy and paste, copy all of this and hit paste. Let's call this our arrow keys, and let's change it to ID 8, and let's trigger opt controls to be value 1. And finally, let's go for our gamepad. Doesn't copy and paste, doesn't want me to copy and paste. There we go. Gamepad, ID 9, and set opt controls to 2. So there we go. That should be our gamepad, and this should be our controls group. So let's make a group here, call this controls, and let's put everything into it, just like that. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to make our back button. So let's actually find out what that ID is, because it's going to be the same ID. It's ID 10. So it should be the same ID for over here. It should also be ID 10. If it's not, I can make it the same because I want it to be the same. It's ID 6 over here. So let's change that to 10 because it's the same button. So we don't really need to do much with it. And it's the back button that is actually going to be a bit more intense to program. But right now, we're going to put all of these into our controls, and we have that done. Let's make our options menu next. So to make our options menu, we just need to do a few different things here that we're going to set up right now. We're going to copy this, just like we did for the other one. We're going to copy all of this right here. We're going to hit paste. And we're going to go, so let's see, if this is 0, 1, and 2, this is 3, 4, and 5. So SFX is 4, music is 5, and full screen is 6. We'll wait a second. 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, so full screen is 5. What we want to do is we want to do pretty much the exact same thing. We want to find out what ID 3 is equal to, which it should be for our muting our music. So let's change this to mute music, or mute SFX, sorry. And this is going to be a little bit different. So first, when we click on something over here, we're going to actually set the options layer to invisible, not controls. And we're going to trigger this once. We're not going to set the op controls at all. We are actually going to do something completely different. So let's get rid of this trigger once. What we're going to do is we're going to make our music manager, and this is actually really exciting because this is going to handle all the music in the game. To make our music manager, what we're going to do is we're going to double click and make a new blank sprite, and we're going to make it huge, so just leave it as it is. Let's call this object music manager. Let's make it global by double clicking on it, and then we're going to give it some instance variables, and the first one is going to be room music, and this is going to be a boolean. The second is going to be the room, and this is going to be a number, and the third is going to be the room SFX, and this is going to be a boolean as well. We're going to set this up so it works, but really what's the most important part about this is it's a global object, which means it will not be destroyed, and I will not be destroying it. And so therefore, when we load from the menu layout, this object will carry over to the game layout in the same position off the screen, and the same thing for the win death layout. And that's very important to have to constantly be able to mute and control your audio. That's pretty much the key. So what we're going to do in our menu manager here is we're going to create an on-off switch. And to do this, we're just going to say, where's our music manager here? So they both equal false. If object music manager is boolean set room, let's set this up for SFX, room SFX, then we're going to set it to, so this is saying, is room SFX true? Well, the answer is no, so let's set it to false. Let's set the object music manager boolean, go to our boolean. Let's set room SFX to false and hit OK. Then what we want to do is we want to select this and hit X on the keyboard, and we want to just take this and set it to true. So if it's false, then set it to true. So this is just creating a loop, an on-off switch to actually trigger between what's going to happen. Now we're going to call our SFX in our SFX manager when we get to that. We're going to do our music manager right now though. So let's copy and paste this. Let's make a group first because it doesn't like to copy and paste that much. Let's call this our options. And let's put this in here. And let's hit B, and now we can copy this easier. Just like that, let's actually copy this over as well. What we're going to do, and actually, you know what? We could have copied this entire thing over. So let's copy this entire thing over, if it'll let me. There it goes. And let's put this into our group. Let's put, that's fine. We can just edit this one since it's a copy of it. Let's change it to ID 4 because that's going to be for our muting our music. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to write No, we're going to double click on this and we're just going to switch it to room music instead of room SFX. And that should be good to go. I get confused sometimes. I think I can replace them as objects, but really they're just Boolean variables. Okay, so we have our mute SFX control and we have our mute music control done and ready to go. Let's add in for our full screen event here. Now, if we click on our full screen, so let's just copy this guy. Our full screen should be value number 5. We're going to set the layer options to invisible, and we're actually going to create full screen on our pause manager. So let's do the same exact thing that we did for our music manager for our pause manager. Let's go make a sprite. Let's just exit out of this. Let's put it right there. And let's call this object pause manager. Let's give it an instance variable. It's going to be a Boolean of full screen. And that's all we'll do for right now. Until we get to our pause manager, we're just going to handle the full screen input. And what we're going to do for that is if the pause manager, so let's go to our pause manager, Boolean set full screen, then we're going to pretty much do the exact same thing. If it's true, we're going to set it to false. So pause manager set Boolean to false. And then we're going to hit else. And we're going to set it to true. Now, what we need to do before this is we actually need to control the full screen. And we actually need to make our pause manager global. What we're going to do for our full screen here is we are going to just add the action plugins, and it's oddly enough under the browser. We're going to say request full screen. We're going to go to the mode, stretch, scale enter. This will actually make it full screen for every single browser monitor type. Let's copy and paste this and drag this down to the else statement. So if it's false, we want to go back and we want to cancel full screen. So now you have the option to actually click on that button and click off of that button, and it'll go full screen and it'll go off of full screen. Okay, so let's hit play. And we have a few more bugs to fix here, but we should see some production here. So now we actually have this, and now we have this. When we click on full screen, it goes away and it didn't do anything. We still have, okay, so there it goes. So when it gets stuck like that, it's usually because the loop is backwards. And what we can do to prevent that is we can actually set it to true and mess around with it. So double click, set that to true. And if it's true, it'll probably options, full screen. Yeah, there it goes. It just need to be set to true. So none of this is going to do anything. And you can already tell that this isn't actually being highlighted and the back button isn't working. So it's still not functional to the point where it's done. So let's actually finish it up before we go back and add in the functionality for local storage. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new group and we're going to call this globals. And there's a lot to put in here. And what I want to do before I do that is I want to make sure that this is for the back button. And this should actually fix a whole lot of stuff here. So again, let's copy and paste our favorite line of code here. And if the ID is equal to 10, which should be our back button, then what we want to do is we want to, let's get rid of all this stuff. We want to check a bunch of things. The first thing we want to check is system layer viz, or layer is visible. In this case, we want to find out if the options layer is visible and the controls layer is not visible. So we're going to hit I to do that. And then if that is the case, we're going to set the visibility, set the viz of the options menu to invisible. So if you're hitting the back button and the controls layer is not visible, but the options menu is, then set the layer options to visible. Now we need to do the same exact thing, but the inverse. We need to say layer options is not visible, and this is, and I'll make it just like we did the other one, then set controls to invisible. Okay, so now what happens if they're both visible? So let's copy and paste this. Let's take off the inversion. Well, we're going to set them both to be invisible. So let's control click this just like that. Okay, now what if either one of them is visible? So we're going to hit Y on the keyboard here. And if that's the case, then we are going to set a group to deactivate, and then we're going to set a group to be activated. So let's copy and paste this again, and let's invert these guys. And we're going to have to make our group in a second here. Then what I want to do is I want to do more individual. So this is going to handle a lot, but we need one more thing to handle some individual code here. We want to find out if the layer options is not visible. Then we want to set the options group to deactivated. So let's go system group active. We want to set options to deactivated. And then we want to make an else statement by hitting X, control clicking this down and making this activated. Then we want to do the exact same thing for the controls layer. So let's type in controls. I forgot the, oh, come on. Controls, just like that, and hit OK. We want to deactivate the controls group. And then if it's true, we want to activate the controls group. So now this is good, but we need this last check here, and I want to see how we're going to do this. We're going to, I guess we only need to do that one, don't we? Okay, so what we're going to do is our main menu, we're going to disable it. If these are visible, then you can't actually hit the main menu. And to do that, we're just going to say system, group active, main menu, deactivated. That's what we're going to do. And if it is not visible, then it's back to being activated. If either one of them is not visible, then it's back to being activated. Let's see if that's all the additional checks we need for the back button. We still might have some stuff to fix here, such as the hovering. But now when we hit back, we can't actually hover over these, but we need to make sure that we can hover over these. So we have some fixes to make with the hovering. But this should all work pretty well. The options is not working. But you might encounter some issues like this. So we have to kind of take it easy and see what is going to work and what is not going to work. But for the most part, we have this menu manager set up. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we might need for our menu manager at the moment. We might need to do some other stuff. I know we need to set the local storage. Let me call this layer our back button, or group our back button. So we need to do our local storage, but we also need to do one more important thing, and that is on the start of the menu, we want to make sure that we are resetting the global variables. So system reset global variables should take care of that. That way, every time they come to us, we are good. In the every tick, the only thing I would want to add is just a random thing to node WebKit. So NWJS, I would set the title to be project name, and we're good there. I'm trying to think what else we would want to do here. So let's think about what else we need to do, and let's fix that bug for when we actually have our options menu open. Okay, so I was going over this and I was getting confused as to why these things weren't working. The first thing I noticed that needed to be fixed was I had all of these in there and those need to be outside. I'm going to put this into a group, call them globals though, because this is like our global back button. So I'm going to put this here. And what this is doing, I'll explain it again in a second, is it's limiting the ability to hit back. And you'll see more, I'll explain it to you in a sec when we actually hit play. And then the other thing I noticed is for right now in the layer not viz group, we're just going to get rid of these. So everything will actually highlight. We'll come back to that and see if we can update it. But what we've just programmed is we've made a way for it to actually highlight all of these, which is nice, and highlight all of these. And we've made a way for both of these to pop up. And when we hit back, if they're both open, then they'll both close. That's what we programmed all the globals for. So if they're both open, they'll both close. If one's open, it'll close, just like that. So that's what was really important. Now, the one thing that I don't like with the full screen is the thing disappearing. So we're going to fix that. We're going to go to our options we're going to go to our full screen here, and let me make a comment that this is the full screen. And we're going to get rid of this. We're going to leave it open because I feel like when you hit full screen, you don't want it to close because then it'll feel a little weird. So now when you hit full screen, it'll stay open. And that should be good for all of that. So mess around with your menu system and let me know if you have any trouble with it. I'm here to help. All of this stuff, you want to try to keep it to a minimum when it comes to reusing code. And I know that our hovering thing will kind of get repeated a few times until there's a more efficient way to do it. But let me know what you come up with. This is a very new system that I developed on my own, and I'm very happy with it, very proud of it. And I want to see more menu systems like this in games. So what we need to do now, before we move on to our music, is we need to actually add in our controls. So we have our opt controls variable, but we don't have our, our local storage. So let's do that. To store this data locally, let's go to our controls, and we're going to be setting where we set our opt controls, we're going to be setting the item and the key. So to do this, we're going to add the action to our plugin. We're going to go to local storage, and we're just going to hit set item, and we're going to say the key is going to be controls, and for WASD, the value is 0, just like it is for opt controls. We're going to copy this and we're going to paste this over here. And we're going to set it to 1 for the arrow keys. And we're going to copy this and we're going to paste this and set it for 2 for the gamepad. Now, this is important because this is actually storing it on your device, whatever device you are using. In this case, we're using NWJS, but this is storing it on your computer. So that way, when you go back, it'll always have that saved rather than restarting when we reset the global variable at the start of this layout here. So, which is actually something that we needed to do. Did I not do that? I thought I had. Maybe I did it in the win death layout by mistake. No, I didn't. So let's actually do that. Let's reset the global variables at the top here in the start of the layout. System, reset global variables. Because what's going to happen is every single time that we play, we want to make sure that our coins go back. We want to make sure that everything goes back that needs to go back before we actually restart. But the one thing that we want to make sure that we save is our input. We want to make sure that if we start with the gamepad, they don't have to pick their input over again. So now that we have it set, we still have to do a few checks to make sure that it's going to work. The first being in the start event. On the start of layout event, what we want to have happen is we want to make sure that plugins, local storage checks the item exists. In this case, it checks that the controls local storage exists. Once it checks for that, we just need to make sure that we do some additional checks to make sure that it'll always get that key. So to do that, we're going to double click, go to our plugins, go to local storage, and we're going to say on item exists. On item exist controls. Then what we want to do is we want to tell local storage to get the item controls. And this is just kind of redundant, but this is going to make sure that it always gets controls. Let's do another one where we go plugins, local storage, on item get. In this case, on controls get. What we want to do here is we want to set our variable of opt controls, so system set the value of opt controls, to equal local storage dot item value. Now this is going to get whatever the current value of the item was previously. Let's do our last thing, double click here, plugins, local storage, and let's say on item missing. Let's go here and let's type in key controls. On controls missing, then we're going to do the same thing, control click this down, set opt controls to whatever the local storage has last for the item value. So now we have our local storage done. We can just group this together, call this local storage. And now what we should be able to do is we should be able to pick one of these options. So if I pick the gamepad, I played through the game, I died, I come back. I don't have to come back to the controls menu. I can just hit start game and go back and play with the gamepad. But there's one more thing that we actually need to tie in here, and that is the actual controls. To do this, let's go to our game manager event here. let's make a variable called controls, and let's have it equal 0. Let's go to our player control group, and what we want to do before all this, so I'm going to make a new sub right here. What we want to do here is we want to set controls to equal what we want it to equal. So if compare variable, and there's one more thing we need to do for this. If controls equals 0, let's copy and paste and paste. If it equals 1, and if it equals 2. Now what we're going to do all the way up above here is we're going to get the item controls from local storage on the start of the layout. So let's go here, let's go plugins, local storage, get the item controls, and then every tick we're going to set the value of controls to opt controls, just like that. We can put this at the top. All right, now that that's all tied in together, we can say if controls equals 0, then what we want to have happen is we want to make sure that WASD is active. So let's do that. Set group active, WASD, and we want to make sure that arrow keys and gamepad are disabled. So let's do that. Arrow keys disabled, deactivated, and gamepad deactivated. And let's copy all of this and paste this here. Then what we want to do is we want to flip it. So for if controls 1, that means arrow keys will be activated. So let's turn that on. And let's turn WASD off, so deactivated. And then finally, let's copy all these and put the gamepad to activated. And let's put the other ones to deactivated. In this case, the arrow keys. Okay, so now that we have this done, we can actually edit and put all of these to active on start now that we actually are controlling them on our own. So now they can all be active on start, and we can hit save. And now if we test our game, and if I were to pick, oops, by default it'll always go to WASD because controls will equal 0 if we don't tell it to equal 1 or 2. So let's hit play. And if I go controls, gamepad, start, and I try to move around with the arrow keys or WASD, it's not working. But when I actually go to my gamepad here, and hopefully you can hear my gamepad, it is working, which is awesome. So let's do the same check. Let's go back to here and let's check the arrow keys. Make sure that everything else is working. Let's hit play. And let's go controls, arrow keys, start the game. Can't use WASD, can't use the gamepad, but when I use the arrow keys, they are working. Awesome. So now we have our controls mapped to local storage for our menu. This is huge. Now we can actually reset the game properly. Okay, so now that we have our local storage done, we are ready to add music. So to do this, let's just go to our music folder. Let's import music. Now, this is the sounds, so we're not there yet. Let's go to our adventure assets. Now, I purchased this music, and I want to actually, let me import this here. I'm going to select all of these and hit open. But before I do, before we go any further, I want to show you where I got this music from, how I got it on the store, how I purchased it, and just how I redeemed it. So without further ado, here is just a clip of me on the Skira store buying this music. Welcome back. We are on the Skira.com Skira homepage. This is where you download Construct 2. Hopefully by now you are very familiar on how to get Construct 2. You should be at this point. And what I want to go through is on the website, they have a few things. And one of the things is the store. Now there's another thing called the arcade, which we're going to do later on in the videos, but the store is where you can actually get some starter assets, and you can also get really cool projects. So if you want to learn how to program more advanced things, there are example projects on the store by other users from the community that you can actually purchase and then dissect yourself. One of the things that I like to use the store for is game music, because that way I don't have to go looking for a composer or anything like that. I can just find music on the store. It's relatively cheap, and I can just throw it in my game and use it for that specific game. So let's do that, because I need to get music for this game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the store, and I'm going to, and here's the store at this point in time. You can see there's a lot of things that it has to offer. It's got 2D game assets, it's got menu stuff, it's got everything you could want, tile maps, sounds, templates. There's a whole lot of stuff here. So hopefully you know about the store, and hopefully you're not afraid that buying something is overrated, because when you buy something, you're going to look at someone's code, usually when you buy something that's a coded template or something like that, and you're going to learn new ways to do something. So it's a really helpful resource. You can see I've bought 19 things off of this store. So, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff to do here, and it's kind of tempting because there's always good sales, there's always good bundles going on. So make sure you check that out. And in this case, I'm going to go to the game music, and I'm going to walk you through buying something on the store. So I'm on the game music section now. I already have picked out what I want to buy. I want to buy this song right here, and it's $2.19, so it's perfect for me. So I'm going to open the link in a new tab, and then I'm going to go to the next page because I think there's another song on here that I want to buy. Here it is, 8-bit battle music. So I'm trying to fit the style of my game, and music really, as it says even up here on the top of the store webpage, music is a crucial component to set the mood in any game, and that's 1000% true. But we want to put the music in last. We want to make the game first, and then music is what brings the game together. So you want to make sure that your game has music that fits it. Otherwise, it's going to play horribly. You may be making the best game in the world right now, but if you don't have the good music to go with it, then it's just not going to work. Now, that being said, the music that I have picked is a little bit more upbeat and happy and not exactly cave music, but that's okay because it fits with what I want to do. I want this game to be very friendly. I want it to be very old school, classic-y, so I want it to have like 8-bit sounding, and then I also want to have a different music play when I entered into our boss room, when I actually played the boss music. So this is perfect for me. I'm going to add this to my basket, and I'm going to do that for the other one as well. And when I go to this page now, since I added this one first, it'll be here. And then I'm just going to choose my payment options and hit play. So I'm going to pause this video. I'm going to pay for this. And I'm going to come back, and you're going to see it in my downloads page. All right, we're back, and I have purchased both songs, and you can see now that they are in my downloads page. They are in where I clicked on my downloads right here, and what you do once you go to your downloads is you have to scroll all the way to the bottom, and you have to redeem the coupon code. So I'm going to hit redeem, and then I'm going to hit redeem again, and that's going to redeem that track, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit redeem, and I'm going to hit redeem again, and include that track as well. So now I can just hit download on both of these, and just like that, I got my music from the Skira store. So I hope that this video just kind of gives you a little bit of an insight, or this clip really just gives you an insight as to why it's okay to buy something from a store, because it really helps overall. And you should really consider buying things that you don't know how to do at first and get an idea. When I was making our dialogue system, I had a really good idea how I wanted to do it, but I wanted to look at other dialogue systems, so I bought them. They were like $4. And same thing with menus. This one requires a plugin that you see here, but it's still a great way to learn how to actually make a really fancy menu. So things that you may know how to do, things that you've maybe programmed before in the past, but you want another look on it, another take from another programmer, it's great to see other people's work, and I highly recommend it. Plus, you're supporting the developer, so it's a win-win situation for everybody. So that's it for the store. I hope you go and buy some music for your game to make it feel better. Let's get back to developing ours. All right, hopefully that helped you out in case you've never purchased anything on the store, and don't feel like you have to make an investment if you don't want to, but it's always good to have more quality assets in your arsenal than just kind of making it yourself when you're first starting off. You really just want to focus on the game. So since our game is pretty much done, we need to actually make it feel whole. And to make it feel whole, we're going to add music and we're going to add sound effects. And the first thing we're going to do is add our music. We've already imported the music that we purchased. All I did was right-click and imported the music, and it converted it to OGG file for us, which is really nice. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to our music manager that we made in a previous lecture here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the event to our object music manager, and we're going to find out if the Boolean room music is not true. And if it is not true, then we're going to find out what room we are in. So to do this, we're going to go to our music manager object. We're going to compare the instance variable of room, and we're going to find out if it equals 0. We're going to do the same thing for 1 and the same thing for 2. And the same thing for 3. Now you're probably thinking, wait, what? There's only 3 layouts. Why is there 4? Let me make this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 0, 1, 2. See, I'm getting confused right now. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. And the third one is going to be our boss music. So when we actually get to the boss, we're going to trigger our boss battle music, and that's going to sound really epic. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just make trigger once. So we're going to hit B to make a sub event, and we're going to say trigger once. And what we want to do here is we want to stop all the audio. This is important because when we usually set, let's go back. Let's go to our plugins, audio, stop all. This is important because you want to make sure that you're stopping all audio before you play a new sound. And this is also important when you're going to a new room. You want to make sure that you stop the previous audio. So we're going to do a stop all. Then the first room, so room 0 is going to be the menu. We're going to go plugins, audio, play, and we're going to be playing the joyful intro melody. Now, I like to put the volume down. I'm going to put it down to -10 decibels, so it's half as loud as what it originally is. But you can leave it to whatever you'd like. Then this is the most important part. I'm going to give it the tag of game-music. Now this is super important because we are going to be muting everything on that tag. So what we're going to do now is we're going to copy this trigger once. We're going to hit B on room 1 and paste it. And we're just going to change the audio to be middle 3. Room 1 will be our actual game layout there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to room 2. Room 2, we're going to actually have this trigger once, is going to be our win death layout. So it's going to be our outro music. And then finally, room 3 is going to be our boss music. So let's paste this in here and let's play our boss battle music, just like this. And that is our music event. We are done with our music manager, but we still need to have a way to include it, and we still need to actually set the room. So to do this, let's go to our SFX manager. Let's hit N on the keyboard, and let's include the music manager. Now, we're going to be doing the SFX stuff in the next lecture here, but by including the music manager in the SFX manager, we don't need to include it anywhere else, because as we go to our game manager, we can hit N and include the SFX manager, which is already including the music manager. So it's this whole domino link chain here. Okay, so now that we have the SFX manager included, which has the music manager included, on the start of the layout, we're going to set the room to what it is. So this is our game manager. So we're going to go to our object music manager, set the value of room to 1. I'm going to put this at the way top here. Then I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go to my menu manager. I'm going to go to the start of the layout and I'm going to set the room to 0 because that's the first room. Then I'm going to go to the win death layout or the win death event over here on the start of the layout. I'm going to set the room to 2. And finally, when we trigger our boss, let's go to trigger boss. And when the timer actually goes off, before we actually spawn the boss, we're going to change the room to 3 and hit save. Now, because our music manager object is a global object that we've already made, it's going to carry over from this menu event to every other event. So here's our pause manager, here's our music manager. Both of these are going to carry over and they're just going to exist right here on every single event. And let's hit play and let's see what happens. Now, if it doesn't play, let's see why it didn't play that first time here. Let's see what I forgot to do. It's probably because I forgot something, so fear not. What we're trying to get it to do here is we're just trying to get it to play. Oh, the reason why it's not playing is because I don't have the music manager on the menu. So let's hit, or I don't even have the sound manager on the menu. Let's see if what I want to do is the sound manager again. Probably is. Yes, I want to have the sound manager on the SFX manager on the menu manager. And let's hit play. There we go. There's our audio. So when I hit options and I hit mute, it should mute, but if it doesn't, that's because I didn't actually put in the implementation to mute the tags yet. That's fine. Let's hit start game. And, okay, so that didn't happen yet. Let's go back to our music manager. I realized that I think I actually forgot to put in the muting. That would be the important part. Just because we're stopping doesn't mean we're actually muting here. So I did forget that. I can't believe I forgot that. But what we're going to do is we're going to double click and we're going to find out what happens if room music is true. Because that's what we needed to do. So we're going to double click and we are going to say if object music manager is Boolean variable set true, then we want to set game music to muted. I even set it up for our game music tag to be popular. I completely forgot. So we're going to go to our plugins, audio, and we're going to go set muted, and we're going to set the tag of game music to muted, only if this is true. Then what we're going to do, we're going to say if we are not true, then we're going to set it to unmuted. Now, we could actually probably put this up here, but for right now, we'll just have it as a separate thing. Let's do the same thing for our SFX. Now, this should... We have to just go like this, double click. I was almost going to hit R again. I'm so used to doing that. And what we're going to do is we're going to do this like this, game SFX. So now that we've actually programmed in for our mute controls, this is going to be called when you actually go in the menu and you hit this. This is what we programmed before in the menu manager over here in our options menu. This is what we've already said. If the music manager room SFX is true, set it to false, else set it to true. So we've already done all that, and this is just filling out that bit of information. If it's not true, then set it to unmuted. If it is true, then set it to muted. So hopefully this should work now. When I hit play, we can hear the music. I go to the options, and I hit mute music, and it mutes. Now this is the most important part. The reason why we're doing it this way is now I muted it on the menu, and I go to the start game, and now it's muted in the start game. And that is the most important part because you want to be able to unmute it on the start game. You don't want to have it start over in the start game. You want it to carry over, and that's why we have our global object. So this is going to carry over, but since we don't have any pause menu or way to actually bring it back to play, I'm just going to have to restart. And I'm actually going to put our player back up to where he should be. So right around there. And now we actually have, for the most part, our music management system working. We don't have any audio for SFX to test out, but we do have our music implemented. So let's actually, you know what? As soon as I did that, let's go back here and let's trigger our boss and let's hear the boss music. And let's hear the win death layout music as well. So let me see here. So without having picked any controls, it's WAS and D. Let's go all the way down here. And dodge, dodge, dodge. Didn't dodge everything. I got some health. And let's go like this. And bam. All right, so now let's see what happens. Oh, you know what? It's muted. I just realized that entire time it was muted. So let's go here. Let's go to our main menu. And let's say... Let's try the gamepad. I really like the gamepad, so I'm going to use that. Let's get my... guy there. I'm holding down X to do my wall slide, which is really nice. Feels good. Jump, 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 dodge, dodge, dodge. Jump, jump, slide, slide. Oop, oh. And go here. Trigger. The music stopped a little soon, but there it goes. All right. Let's see. So this is more intense boss music. I'm very happy with this, but we still have more sound effects to play. Oh, I know what I did wrong. So we have one last thing to fix here. I'm gonna go here. And the reason why none of this is playing is because I forgot to loop it. So let's go back to our music manager event. Let's go in here and let's set everything to looping. Otherwise, it's not going to work. The beauty of these clips are they're actually 15 seconds long and they are looping clips. So they don't take up much space. They're not a minute and a half long. And I can just kind of control however I want to control them. So now when I loop, it'll constantly loop and it won't stop and it'll sound seamless, but it won't really sound like a song. But that's okay because we just need it to sound like action-y game music. So real fast, let's do one final test here. This should now loop over and over and over again. And we go to our start game here. And because I didn't pick any controls, and because of the local storage, I'm still using the gamepad, which is awesome. I absolutely love having that feature. So let's go over here, and of course I take damage on the spike. Let's go over here. Run, 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 run. As soon as you make the commitment to do that, you have to commit. All right, so now it triggered perfectly. Now it's looping perfectly, and now it's more intense, which is really cool. So we have a few more things we're gonna add to the boss in the SFX video, which is our last video to do for right now. So I'm very excited to get on with this because the SFX video is just going to bring all of this together now that we have our music and now that we have our controls working. He's exploded. We've won. So when we go to our layout, or when we go to our win death layout, it didn't set the room to 2, which is interesting, or it's because it doesn't have the SFX manager. So there we go. That should be good now. Thank you so much for watching this extremely long video. I do hope that you have learned a whole bunch from all of this stuff. I know some of it might have been more dull than informative, but the game we're making isn't, and I really do hope that you are learning a whole lot from this. So that is it for this video. We have one final video to finish our game up. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.